Hey everyone, this is Tom Salemi. Welcome back to the Device Talks Weekly Podcast. It's been a super busy week here at Device Talks. Lots going on. A few things I want to clear with you or share with you before we get into this week's podcast. Number one, this week's podcast. It's one of our shorter ones we've had as of late, but we will be sending out our first episode of the Stryker Talks podcast early next week. So if you're subscribed to the Device Talks Weekly Podcast channel, you will get Stryker Talks sent directly to you. And it's a great interview I did with Spencer Stiles, the group president of orthopedics at Stryker. So if you're not subscribed to this channel, please do so. And you'll be able to listen to that as soon as it comes out. You can also find Stryker Talks on DeviceTalks.com, and it'll be up on Stryker's website as well. So excited to get that out to you. So if you add both podcast episodes up together, you're getting your hour plus. We're just going to give it to you in smaller, more palatable bites. So this is probably the equivalent of a 3 to 4 mile run, as opposed to, maybe half a marathon for some of you faster folks. So that's item number one. Now, item number two, the Device Talks Boston conference. So our agenda is probably 75% done. We're getting it up on the website, devicetalks.com. So feel free to check that out. We're still adding speakers. I'm still adding a few more panels, but you'll get a sense of what we're working on there. If you have an interest in being part of it as a sponsor or as a speaker, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can email me. My email address is tsalemi, TSALEMI, at WTWHmedia.com. Like I said, the speaker roster is pretty full. So more, if you're interested in being part of the program, you can check out the agenda online. You can reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with the right folks. You can also take part or register for a webinar that we're putting together. It's a short little presentation by me about the program. And I'll include a link to that in our show notes. So it's free. It'll take 10 minutes, but it kind of give you an overview of what we're working on. So if you're interested in being a sponsor of Device Talks Boston and our other Device Talks events, I'd love to explain what we're doing. I think it's really cool. I think it's really different, and I think it'll be really valuable for folks. Number three, I think one of the more valuable parts of Device Talks Boston is our partnership with MedTech Innovator. Of course, we had Paul Grand on the podcast a few weeks ago. He had issued a deadline that he had for companies that wanted to present to another part of his program. But Paul will be running an entire track at Device Talks Boston, our innovation and investment track. And he's going to have more than 24, probably close to 36 privately held medtech startups presenting their stories. And these will be later stage companies, mid to late stage companies. Paul's looking for companies that have raised a Series B or Series C. They are eligible to apply. So if you've raised at least a Series B, you're eligible to apply to present at Device Talks Boston. Companies will get to present twice at the meeting. First, they'll get to present to the group at large, all the attendees of Device Talks Boston. And secondly, they will get to present directly with MedTech Innovators corporate partners who will be on site. So there'll be representatives from companies like J&J, Edwards Life Sciences, Olympus, Dexcom, W.L. Gore, Nipro, and many more, as well as some investors as well. So this is an extraordinary opportunity for mid to late stage companies. And if you want to be part of that, if you want to present, you need to submit your application. You need to go to medtechinnovator.org and you need to apply before March 31st. We're going to have Paul on the program again next week to talk about this a bit more. But again, I'm really excited to be working with Paul and MedTech Innovator on this program. This is the first Device Talks meeting that I've had the chance of organizing. And when I first started doing this, I reached out to Paul immediately because I just wanted to bring MedTech Innovators energy and enthusiasm and just expertise to any meeting that I did. So Paul was going to work with me at our meeting in Minnesota in 2020. That obviously didn't happen. So I'm super excited to have him, even more excited to have him in my hometown, Device Talks Boston. So once again, if you are leading a privately held company that's raised at least a Series B and you want to present at Device Talks Boston, go to medtechinnovator.org to apply to present. All right, well, I know that is a lot. So number one, remember, look for Striker Talks next week. We'll get that out to you early next week. Subscribe to this podcast channel if you haven't already, and you'll see Striker Talks. Number two, the agenda is up on the DeviceTalks Boston website. You can get that at devicetalks.com. And if you're interested in being part of that program and you want a chance to meet all of these great medtech innovator companies and their partners, check out the webinar. I'll put the link to register on the show notes, and it's free and it's 10 minutes. And it's just a quick overview. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or social media or however you can reach me. Finally, again, MedTech Innovator will be a huge part of Device Talks Boston. And if you want to present to our attendees, and we'll be in the hundreds, we're hoping for over 500. And our meeting is co-located with our Healthcare Robotics Engineering Forum and our massive Robotics Expo. It's going to be a great day, great 2 days at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center. You can go to devicetalks.com to register for that, but you can go to medtechinnovator.org to apply to present at Device Talks Boston. All right. That's a lot of stuff for you to know, but I'm glad you know it. And now let's get this podcast going. All right. You ready for this?
Ready.
Well, Chris Newmarker, how are you, sir?
Doing well, Tom. Doing well. No complaints.
I toned down my "how are you, sir" a bit because we're obviously dealing with a lot of strife in the world, and we're going to talk about that today. We have senior editor Danielle Kirsch in the booth. Danielle, hello.
Hi, Tom and Chris. Glad to be back.
Great to have you back. And you
Good
wrote
to have Danielle back.
Yeah, you wrote a great piece about sort of what medtechs are, how they're responding to the Ukraine, and we'll explore that a bit further. But just in reading that, just kind of struck me how, I don't know, maybe I'm just more attuned to it than I used to be, but that the corporations seem to be responding a lot more actively to significant events like this than they once did. I don't know if it's post George Floyd, the killing of George Floyd, where they decided to sort of go beyond their "we make money" charter and try to be members of the world. But what do you folks think?
It's actually it's a big movement, like you said. It kind of happened after George Floyd. It's kind of what I've been learning. It's just there's a lot more pressure on corporations to have some sort of comment on public events because the CEOs and corporations tend to be trusted more than sometimes the mainstream media and politicians. So I think corporations are really just feeling the brunt of this new movement of accountability.
Absolutely.
It's interesting because it seemed like the common wisdom in the past was that businesses weren't should avoid making political stands because you were going to turn off a certain section of your customer base. It's it kind of, I mean, like here where I live in progressive St. Louis Park, a barber probably shouldn't have Fox News on, but yeah, I've kind of noticed there's just so many tough things going on in the world right now. It just, I guess maybe it just seems really tone deaf for a company not to acknowledge what's going on and recognize that they actually have some responsibility beyond their profits.
Absolutely, and it'll be interesting to see sort of what the long-term impacts are. I mean, we saw after the January 6th travesty that a lot of companies withdrew funding for certain candidates who were not as critical of that insurrection as they should have been.
And some of them have quietly started giving
again. Yeah. So it's one thing to issue a press release. It's another thing to actually change your behavior. So clearly, I think the war in the Ukraine is something I hope all of us could agree is a horrible thing that needs to be stopped. But it's great to see medtech companies stand up and say something, and we'll explore who that is in a little bit.
And I know I'd also add that, I mean, yeah, we're doing a medtech podcast here, so we're not going to sit around talking about foreign affairs, but I would say that, this tragedy that we're seeing over in Ukraine, at least, I don't know if heartening is the best word, but I mean, at least, like seeing what we have to lose. I mean, you definitely are seeing like a unity. Gosh, I think we're seeing a unity in, the country and our, the freedom, the world of, free countries that, we haven't seen since, I don't know, since after 9/11. I mean, it definitely feels like there's a certain, feeling of more of like unity around, kind of the shared things, we're supposed to stand for, and that's heartening.
I hope so. I hope it sticks. And again, to your point, we don't want to go too far down this path, but as someone who I'm 52, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. I was a child in the 70s and the 80s. It was a formative time in my life, and it's a time when we all just assumed we would be in a nuclear war someday, and that went away.
I'm old enough, I remember that. I remember.
And this stream seems strangely familiar to me. Like, just sort of this like this uncertainty, like, oh, this could get bad real quick. Feels tragically familiar. So let's hope it goes away again, because I certainly preferred not living under that.
Yeah, I like the music of the 80s. I don't want to go back to the global politics of the 1980s.
That's my workout jam, Chris Newmarker.
Right.
Nothing like 80s music to get your heart pumping. But
are you like running to Phil Collins?
No, I don't really skip the Susu Studio. No, my iFit rower has its own little mix, so it hits all the buttons for me. So, but before we begin in the Newsmakers, Danielle, I understand you have partaken in the new Theranos series on Hulu.
Mm-hmm. The Dropout on Hulu.
The Dropout, yes.
Yeah, it's based off of the ABC podcast. They've released the first 3 episodes so far, and I would say Amanda Seyfried, I think is her name. She does a really good job at portraying the just awe that Elizabeth Holmes had for microfluidics. Like it seems very on par with what everyone was saying about how she was really passionate about what she believed in, and then just the way she like pitches everything. And they also I don't know if I should spoil it, but
I'm actually a little don't spoil it too much, because people listening might want to watch it. I'm a little Theranos overdose and Theranos. I'm not sure if I'm going to watch it or not.
Yeah, me same here. I'm kind of,
so far it seems pretty accurate from what we know. So there's some points about her voice being made, and just some major characters that we know about from the trial that are included just in the beginning. And
I was just like recalling, I think like Kate McKinnon was originally supposed to do that role. What do you
really?
Yeah, I think you're like
that would have been interesting. Wow. She's fantastic, but I don't see her as Theranos.
Not much of a film critic, but I think Amanda is doing just a really good job at just portraying her, because I know Amanda from a different movie from when I was growing up, Mean Girls.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. I was trying to place her. There she is. That's right. Okay.
Yes, but she's doing a really good job, I would say, and the series is good so far.
I wonder if the Jennifer Lawrence vehicle, is that still going? She was going to do like a movie, right?
Oh, I did hear that. Mm-hmm. I haven't listened to it.
Is that still going?
I don't know. I thought that was good casting as well. So, all right. Well, the Dropout is out there. So, and we should say that, Danielle, you are a certified Theranos head, right? You've read the book, you've listened to the podcast, you've followed the trial, all the podcasts. So if you say that they're doing a good job of being somewhat authentic, then I'll take your word for it. All right. Well, folks, the Dropout's out there. Danielle gives it out of 4 stars. Danielle, how many stars so far?
I give it 3.5.
3.5. That's a good rate. All right. Well, make sure you watch that on Hulu, folks. Chris Newmarker, You've got a 4-star Newmarker's Newsmakers for us, right?
Newmarker's Newsmakers. I think 4, 5 even stars. Number 5 on the list is Ukraine, and a story that Danielle ran out on Wednesday night about. Danielle, tell us about the story. What's going on with Ukraine?
Well, the World Health Organization said that it was sending more than 36 metric tons of medical supplies to Ukraine. And there was a few medtech companies that also announced contributions that they were making. Henry Schein, Siemens, Conformis, Roche, Medicom, and Philips also announced. So they've all announced so far that they were going to either have some sort of employee contribution fund where they match donations, or they were sending money or supplies to Ukraine or the surrounding areas to just support the humanitarian efforts.
Yeah, I especially was struck. Siemens was like 1 million euros.
Mm-hmm.
I also saw Conformis went a bit further and was saying they were cutting business ties in Russia.
And I thought initially that they were mostly or all European companies, but there actually is a mix of Europe and the U.S. So it'll be interesting to see if some of our larger U.S. companies step up and make statements and take action. And I imagine, Danielle, you'll be following these stories and announcements and statements as they come out.
I will. I'm monitoring all of the feeds, waiting to see what anyone else has to say.
All right. Well, folks can keep an eye on MassDevice.com for updates there. And Chris, what is number 4 in the Newmarker's Newsmakers?
Number 4 on the list is how Siemens Healthineers, Varian, they're facing some scrutiny in Massachusetts over the environmental cleanup at a former site of theirs in Beverly. This is really something that we just picked up really quickly from the Salem News. The Salem News has been reporting the heck out of this. It's actually a good example of intrepid local journalism. They've been really looking at what was going on with this cleanup, and eventually, like the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection has, ruled that the cleanup operation is not working. They're saying it's, violating state regulations, and so they're going to have to, they're going to Varian and telling them to design a new plan, with a deadline of 2 years to get a solution here, because we want to make sure that we don't have environmental contamination in our communities. But I mean, I guess it's just a sign that medtech, like many other industries, we get some old manufacturing sites that can become really problematic.
Yeah, this has been an ongoing issue for a long time, according to the article. It's not an issue I was aware of, but Salem is not too far from my house. It's about 30 miles south of where I live. No, actually 20 miles. And the Salem News was a sister paper of my newspaper when I worked in newspapers. We used to play tackle football against each other, the editorial staffs.
Did you win usually?
Newburyport always won, yes.
Oh.
If anyone from the Salem paper is listening, they might want to rebut, but we played with honor and courage. So
just don't answer your phone if you're getting a call from Salem.
Let us move on to number 3 on the Newmarker's Newsmakers.
All right. Well, the next one we got on the Newsmarker's Newsmakers is Heartflow is announcing a new COO. They're promoting John Farquhar, who they brought in as their COO in August 2021. And Farquhar is a former Medtronic executive. We've just been seeing a lot of these, as Medtronic restructures, we've just been seeing a lot of Medtronic executives going out and doing new things. And so now we've got a Medtronic veteran leading Heartflow, which interestingly enough, just to let people know if they don't know about the company, they've got this non-invasive analysis. He uses AI to create a 3D heart model to help diagnose cardiac problems. But they were going to do a $2.4 billion SPAC, and they called that off last month because they were just saying that market conditions were unfavorable, and now their co-founder and Dr. John Stevens is stepping down. He'll serve on the board. He'll be the vice chair, but they're promoting Farquhar to be their CEO.
Speaking of SPAC attacks,
we got Butterfly Network, which was one of the early ones that we covered, these special acquisition corporation deals, and they released their fourth quarter earnings, and at least on the day they came out, the stock was down, on news that they were saying that they're projecting that they're going to have, of course they're a young company. Young companies, tend to report losses, as they grow. But they were saying, projecting losses in the range between $225 to $245 million during this new fiscal year. So the markets. That's my best guess for why the markets weren't exactly excited about this, even as Butterfly Network beat fourth quarter expectations on their report. But we'll just see how this goes. They've got this handheld ultrasound technology that seems like it could make a difference. But at the same time, it's going to be a really interesting trend. We've gotten all these young companies that went public through these special acquisition corporation deals, and how's it going to work out? How's it going to work out being a public company? And and seeing how the markets react to all the ups and downs that you inevitably have when you're growing a company.
I did have my interview with Doug Godshall, the CEO of Shockwave. We mentioned it last week that Shockwave had some really astounding performances in revenue, and he talked a bit about why he likes leading a public company. So we'll get that to you folks in a future episode, but investors can be fickle for sure.
Yes.
All right, Chris, finish it off. What's number one on the Newmarker's Newsmakers?
And number one on the list, we had ZimVie, the spinoff of Zimmer Biomet's spine and dental businesses. The deal was completed this week. The company started trading on the NASDAQ March 1st. Trading under ZimVie, and I actually caught up with their CEO Vafa Jamali just shortly after he rang in the NASDAQ, and talked about what he's looking to do with the company, and versus spoiling this here. Let's just play the interview and find out what's going on with them.
That's right. You're doing double duty, Chris. You're also leading the interview. We'll have one interview this week. And he was actually on the floor of NASDAQ, right? Or at least in the NASDAQ building, might not have been on the floor.
Yeah, he was ducking into a room. He was, I saw fluorescent bulbs on the ceiling. He was grateful we weren't doing a video. Hi, this is Chris Newmarker. I'm executive editor of MassDevice and Medical Design and Outsourcing. It's March 1st, 2022. And the big news today is that Zimmer Biomet's dental and spine spinoff, ZimVie, is complete, and it's trading today for the first time on the NASDAQ. And joining me today is Vafa Jamali, the CEO of this new company. Vafa, welcome to MassDevice and DeviceTalks.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Great to be here on this great day for us.
Yeah, it's you rang in the bell on the NASDAQ, right?
That's right. We rang it about an hour ago. It was terrific.
Just looking at your history, this is your first time being a CEO of a new publicly traded company. What does that feel like to be, in charge of something like this for the first time?
It feels great. It's sort of what you prepare for as a career, and you've got to do experiences. And a lot of these experiences that I've done within large companies have been lateral moves that taught me things around, new market entry, market development, globalization, operations. You sort of tackle on these experiences so that when an opportunity like this, you're fortunate enough to get an opportunity like this, you're prepared for it, and you really embrace it with all of your passion and all of your heart. And so it just feels like, a collection of experiences, and it feels fantastic.
It's one thing to run. You've run huge businesses inside companies, but it must be one thing to run a huge business inside a company, and to now be the buck stops with you. You're the CEO. How exciting is that?
It's really exciting. Some people really, really run to responsibility and the spotlight. And this is really where that is most seen, is that, the responsibility is yours and the decision-making is yours. And it's very different than how it is inside of a large company where you have a lot of responsibility, but ultimately there's somebody kind of watching over and making the last call in many cases.
Yeah, you were at Covidien and then Medtronic for more than a decade. I saw that you worked a great deal on gastrointestinal technologies. What drew you to leave that and take over the corner office at this new independent spine and dental company? What excited you about it?
So, like I said, it's really a collection of experiences and what you learn from each one. And the piece that's lost on possibly the last job is how small it was when I started, and it really needed to grow. and how you grow globally, how you grow with technology, how you innovate, how do you act like a big player and when you're not really a big player. Those are all the lessons. And when I looked at, ZimVie, we had this great opportunity within spine and dental to really grow those markets and grow those businesses much, much more than they would if they were inside of a big company. And it's not about the big company not wanting to grow it. It's just the big company has to have its own priorities, and they're often not the priorities of what eventually gets carved out. So I knew that this would be a great opportunity for us to pull value, to drive value, and to drive innovation inside these two businesses. And that's what's really motivated me to come over.
Tell me a little bit more about how, splitting off from Zimmer Biomet is going to benefit ZimVie going forward.
So when you look at historically with carve-outs, you benefit in a great way from talent. So a lot of talent will come and work for an independent company where they might not work for a division of a company that's not the focus of the company. And so I knew that going in. So I knew that we would be able to benefit from the talent that we would be able to pull over. And then secondarily, just the focus. I mean, we put so much energy on these two businesses that, you'll see us do better operationally. You'll see us be more focused on how we spend our money, how we really make our investments, and then where do we innovate? And those are all decisions that we have to make that will make a difference.
Instead of having to run up the decisions to Indiana, where they're also making decisions about knees and hips, right. You're more focused on these, spine and dental technologies. I mean, your old employer, Medtronic, I mean, they made a lot of waves in the spine space with their, Maser robotic systems. I mean, how do you see ZimVie, competing, with that? I mean, what can you do? I mean, spine and back problems are so debilitating. I mean, how can you up the game and, help out a lot more people here?
So I think if you look at robotics in general and spine, I mean, ultimately there will be a place where we benefit as patients and surgeons, having enabling technologies inside your business. And what it's going to do really is going to either improve workflow and improve outcomes. It has to do probably both. Currently, our technologies haven't quite done that yet. So the areas where we deploy robots is typically in the core and complex areas where we aren't going to be that focused. We're going to be more focused on these areas that we think we can grow faster and grow more. And those aren't really necessarily driven by robotic technology. So I think that we'll be able to find a way to innovate for now in these categories of basically in motion preservation, which is where we've really, really focused on. What I see there's a very crowded market of core and complex spine surgeries. So there's a lot of players there. And really, if you want to be successful with our size, you have to be different and you have to differentiate and maybe take the lanes that are less occupied.
Wow. So, tell me a little bit more about those less occupied lanes. So it's like, you're saying like, we don't want to go in and the complex surgeries, that's a crowded space. So where are you really going to innovate and, and help people out here?
We have the benefit of having loyal customers that do use our core and complex technologies, and they've used it for a long time, and we'll continue to fill gaps there to make sure we please them. But then we found these two other lanes that we think are very, very good growth opportunities for us. One is around cervical disc replacement, which is maybe a third of that market is using cervical disc, and then 2/3 is using fusion. We believe that you can really innovate there and you'll have much better outcomes for patients. We have 10-year trial data that shows that we are statistically superior to fusion. So for the patient, it's better. We need to make sure the workflow works, the reimbursement works, all those pieces work. So that's a really, really critical area, but we think we can grow that market versus, fight for share in that market.
Sounds like a lot of room for improvement. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see these people come on video and, they're golfing not that far after they've had their procedure. So they've got full motion of their neck. Then the second area that I'm really, really excited about is pediatric scoliosis. And in that area, this is a new market. We're really growing it and we're developing that market. And that market is primarily the difference between when a parent notices that a child has a curve in their spine, they go to their doctor, and most often the doctor is going to, if indicated for surgery, is going to fuse it. And fusion works quite effectively for straightening out the curve. But what it doesn't do is leave a lot of mobility. So the tether, which is made by ZimVie, is an innovation that we've made here, really uses a tension cord, which is implanted, which allows the child, as the child grows, that tension straightens out the curve. So the child's left with less of a curve and mobility, which is really, really important. But that's going to take some time to develop that market. We need to make sure that everyone's trained to do it right. We do it on the right patients. We pick the right patients, the most suitable patients, and the outcomes ultimately are very good. That's what we look to do there. But those are areas that are not occupied.
Yeah, I mean, the pediatric space has really been neglected over the years. I mean, that's a theme I see again and again, is there's just not enough devices for children. I mean, what makes you want to get in there and do that?
Well, see, one of the decisions that typically we make is we look at the size of the market and the growth of the market, right? So the growth of the market would be good, but the size of the market would be small. In our case, being a specialist is really, really good. So in our case, we have the luxury of being able to pick where we go and where do we excel. Because in much of the crowded areas, someone else is already there. So it doesn't really make sense for us to try to go there and compete, where we could carve out a very, very nice market with evidence that shows our ability to be excellent in a particular area. And pediatric would be one of those areas.
We were just chatting before we started this interview about how we both have kids, and I feel fortunate. My kids don't have spine problems, but man, that just seems like a tough condition to have to work through with your kids. So it'd be great to see more innovation there. Absolutely,
it is. You see the advocacy coming from parents, and right now with social media being as strong as it is, we do really see a lot of educated parents coming and asking for procedures. So because of that, you have to make sure that you launch effectively, you have clinical proof, your surgeons are trained really well, and your outcomes ultimately improve the lives of those kids. Because if they don't, it'll also be widely known. So I think that's really important responsibility we have. But I do think that this advocacy from parents is a positive for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed you announced your board today, and one of the people on the board is Medtronic's chief medical officer. I mean, that's really impressive. I mean, how much does that suggest there might be opportunities for, should we read anything into that there might be opportunities for ZimVie and Medtronic to work together here? Or what can you tell me?
No, I can tell you that I have an enormous amount of respect for Dr. Kunst, and I've known him for a long time. And on the moment that he announced that he was retiring, I called him and I asked him if he would join our board.
Gotcha.
And he said he would. So that's all you need to read into it. But think about the intellectual horsepower that gives us to really innovate in health and life sciences. And that's really what you should look into it.
That's awesome. Okay. So, I mean, I've heard this is pretty normal in these types of spinoff transactions, but I saw that ZimVie, you're starting out with about, $561 million in debt. How do you manage that and then implement, the dreams and the goals that you have for this company at the same time?
So net is a little bit less than that because we'll have some cash. So roughly, let's say it's around 500, right?
Okay.
And what we need to do is we need to bring that down over the next, 18, 24 months. So we would like to bring that down. We're at a leverage ratio that we think is manageable and our investors are okay with it. But it doesn't give us enough ammunition yet to sort of go out and make bigger decisions that we might want to take in terms of investments. So we have to be careful in the first year, manage properly, look for some of the short-term gains that we have, and really be deliberate about how we spend every dollar. But we're comfortable with the level of debt that we have. Zimmer Biomet's been really, really good with it. And I think we have a good plan to get out of that situation into a situation with more financial flexibility.
I've noticed analysts saying that, the goals that you have for the company, that they're going to take time to implement. So you starting out running this company, I mean, what concrete steps can you take to kind of speed up the process and get the company to where you really want to get it?
So we have the good fortune of having a dental business that's growing quite well. So we have that's going to automatically just provide us some financial leverage, some positive leverage there. At the same time, we have some operational issues to fix within our spine business. If you think about spine, much of the waste can happen on how we handle the heavy capital and how we manage that. And really, this gives us some time to stabilize. So if you look at our goals, really, they're quite acceptable. We're going to stabilize during the year while we've got this business that's growing and another one that we're fixing. And we're leaving a number of countries that were unprofitable for us. But in the past, we just never left. And that opens up a ton of management time and energy. It just frees us up. So we leave that. That's already in our plan. It's not profitable business, so it's not going to impact us. But really, it cleans up a lot of things. We're doing a lot of work with our inventory and how we manage our sets. So this really gives us a chance to sort of stabilize and then to grow from there. So I think the way that we've laid out our plan is quite reasonable. And I think it implies that, we're going to have a year of resetting and sorting out all these pieces. And then you'll start to see us accelerate on some of the more innovation focused areas and goals.
I saw that you've said that the revenue is going to stay flat this year, about 1 billion. But what I'm hearing you saying, look for the company to really grow and, do some really, this year is kind of like your, getting everything organized year. And then like, look for this company to really grow and, do some neat things in the years to come.
Yeah, I think that's the way I would look at it. I would say this is a year where you need to stabilize. There's going to be some separation work that we do from Zimmer Biomet because we have some agreements still that is very normal for a carve-out to have. So we'll get out of some of those. We'll use this year to really plan and to build and then to focus on where we're going to go. We've already decided on where we're going to focus on. In a year from now, we'll be in a much better place to put our resources exactly where we say we're going to be growing.
I always ask this at the end of an interview. Is there anything that I didn't ask that I should have asked?
No, I mean, we're really excited. ZimVie's an exciting place. We've been able to attract some great talent. I'm so thrilled and privileged with the colleagues that have joined me. We're in really good markets. These markets are cumulative about $20 billion. There's room to find areas that are, underpenetrated and need innovation. And we're the right, team to sort that out, find it and go and execute. So we're super excited about the future.
Well, Vafa, congrats and thanks for joining us today and good luck with growing the company.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Appreciate the time.
All right. Well, great job, Chris Newmarker. Welcome to the MedTech world, ZimVie, and hope to have Vafa Jamali on the show again in the future where they have some progress to report.
I was really impressed with how, he discussed, obviously like with a lot of these deals, you start out with some debt. He, discussed how they're going to work through that and, he has some strategies here to grow the company markets where they can, progress, but, also just talk about how it's going to take time. You got this new company spun out. You got to, kind of like really focus in on this business and, and figure out how to get everything ready this year so you can grow this thing in the future.
That's great. Well, I want to just take a moment to remind folks that we will be posting our agenda for Device Talks Boston. It should be up on devicetalks.com by the time let's say next week. If you're listening to this podcast, you got it on Friday, you're listening over the weekend, may or may not be up there, but it's coming soon. So
if things continue as they are in Boston, knock on wood, it sounds like we won't even have masks, right?
They're lifting the face mask requirements. So knock wood indeed. But of course, anyone wants to wear a mask, they certainly are welcome to. We will not be shaming anyone for wearing a mask as some governors have done recently. But all right, Danielle, you're our guest. Danielle Kirsch, how can folks find you out there on social media?
I'm on Twitter at Danielle_Kirsch, KIRSH, as well as on LinkedIn at the same name. Fantastic.
And Chris Newmarker, where can folks find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Chris Newmarker, just like a new marker, and I'm on Twitter as well. So always happy to catch up with people, find out what's going on.
Same here, same for me. I'm at Twitter at MedTechTom, on LinkedIn, Tom Salemi. Please do a few things for us. We would like you to, what do we want them to do, Chris?
Like, follow, subscribe.
That's right. Like, follow, and or subscribe to this podcast. In fact, make sure you do. So you'll hear from you'll receive the first episode of our newest podcast, Striker Talks, which will come out next week. And you'll also get future episodes of the Device Talks Weekly Podcast and Intuitive Talks that should come out later this month. And please do share this particular episode on social media and connect to Danielle, Chris, and myself so we can be part of those conversations. And finally, once again, please do check devicetalks.com for our Device Talks Boston agenda. And when you register, please use the code DTW. It's Device Talks Weekly, DTW25. You'll save 25% off the price of registration, including our early bird rate, which is expiring on March 11th. And finally, don't forget, I mentioned this at the top of the podcast, the deadline for companies that want to present at Device Talks Boston through the MedTech Innovator Program need to apply by March 31st. So go to medtechinnovator.org. We would love to see you in Boston. We'd love to hear your story in Boston. Go to medtechinnovator.org and apply right away. Don't wait until the end of the month, right? We learned that from Paul as I heard
in Drum Bugle Corps years ago, to be early is to be on time is to be late is to be left. So you better get The bus is gonna leave you.
These are pearls of wisdom you can't find anywhere other than Bandcamp, folks. So please do listen and abide. So, Danielle, thanks for following the Ukraine story, and we'll have you back when there's more to report.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, and everybody, instead of like doom scrolling the news coming out of Ukraine, hey, go find a good charity. Give a little money to help with the humanitarian relief efforts over there. That'd be a good thing to do. So
great advice, Chris Newmarker. We'll have a couple of links on the show notes if you're looking for some worthwhile charities. Actually, probably we'll put an article up there that'll link to many, so you can make your own choices. But Chris is right. Take action. We're advising companies to do it, and I think we should do it as individuals as well. So that's a great point, Chris. All right, folks, that is a wrap. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the DeviceTalks Weekly Podcast. Tune in next week. We'll have another great episode waiting for you.
Take care, everybody.